going up and interest rates are. We're going into an economic period that we haven't experienced, and it's uncharted waters for the Fed, and they're either going to be completely.
That had assets. Instagram had none. And they just couldn't understand. And keep in mind, these are people who came to Silicon Valley to hear people like me explain how innovation works and why Google and other companies started here and not in Ireland. That's what they were here for, is to learn how to innovate. And they just couldn't wrap their head around it because it didn't match up with anything they knew in business, right?
Yellen was probably the most incompetent of them all, and now she's the Secretary of the Treasury.
That's a great prelude into what happened in 1929, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but in 1933 it led to a gold confiscation in the U.S.
Well, what happened in 1933 is Roosevelt, wanted to devalue the dollar, but it was backed by gold. So in order to do that, he had to convince people to turn in their gold. And so gold was $20 an ounce, and then Roosevelt said everybody turn in their gold. Now, a lot of people didn't, but many people did out of patriotism. They turned in their gold. And once Roosevelt got the gold, he said, okay, the gold you gave me for $20 an ounce, it's now worth $35. And they tried to use that extra money to prop up the economy. But everything that Roosevelt did was wrong. And we're living with the consequences. He's the one that gave us Social Security. He's the one that gave us Medicare. All this crap that happened in the New Deal, the minimum wage.
It's actually
all this shit happened under
executive
Roosevelt.
order. I don't know if Peter can hear me, but Peter, can you hear me?
But
Can
anyway,
you hear Sphinx right now? No, I don't think he can hear you. But let's go to Sphinx. I'll drop back up. Let's go to Jack while we're meeting. Jack, go ahead.
Hey, Peter. I've been always following you, watching you on YouTube.
Hello? Hey, can you
hear me, guys?
Can you hear the speaker now, Peter?
I just hear you
I'll
guys.
repeat you, Jack. Go ahead and just say what you got to say. I'll
Wait,
say it.
hold on a second. Peter.
We gotta let Elon Musk know that there's some bugs in this.
He's aware. I think he's aware.
Let me just say what
So gold's up 720 now. Let's start to rock and roll. We're above. We're 24.51 now.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
Fine, Jack.
No, hold on a second, Carlos.
And now the
the
Dow futures are back down 300. So we might head for the lows here in the stock market. And Bitcoin is just breaking out of that triangle. So we'll see. Bitcoin is back below 54. It's 53 and 53,900.
Is the dollar being shorted?
I'll speak on your behalf. Say what you got to say, Sphinx, and I'll repeat it to him.
Yeah, so Peter, you can't hear me still, unfortunately?
He can't hear you, Sphinx. Just say it.
Okay, just a second, and I'll say it. So there was a discussion.
Well, I just noticed the Nikkei is now down 6.4%. That's the low. That's the low of the day that I've seen. So the stocks are starting to get hit harder.
I think he just doesn't like your voice.
You see why I'm trying to rush you, Sphinx?
No, I don't, but let me just go ahead anyway.
Who else we got?
Just let them know that you're going to translate the question, I guess.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm listening to a speaker right now. I'm going to reiterate to what she's saying to you, Peter, because you cannot hear about 6 people.
Yeah. One more thing, real quick, that I thought of. One of the reasons I think that you could just see an explosion right now of Ether and Bitcoin is I think people are going to start to say, you know what? I want to get out now. I don't want to wait for those ETFs to start selling at 9:30 tomorrow morning. We need to get the hell out of Dodge. So, I mean, that's going to be, because, you know, the people that own, that's the problem with the people that own the ETFs. They can't sell. Even if they wanted to sell their Bitcoin, they're stuck. They got to wait till 9:30 tomorrow morning.
That's why.
But the people who actually own Bitcoin, they can sell it right now.
This is
exactly real Bitcoin.
Diligent, should we try one more time? Diligent.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you. Just be quick and say what you have to say, and I'll repeat you. Go ahead.
Okay. Earlier there was a discussion about
Dollar just hit new lows on the yen. We're about to break through 144 and a half.
He's definitely doing it on purpose.
Yeah, that's why the Nikkei is going down, because the yen is going up.
Let's go to somebody you can't hear for a minute. Stephanie, go ahead, and then we'll come back to you, Sphinx. Go ahead.
Okay, Peter, can you finally hear me? He can't
Okay,
hear
can't hear
me.
you. Let's go to
You
Lynn.
can't hear the woman from Mike.
Okay, I'm going to say what I was going to say. So there was a discussion about commodities.
Yeah, why can I hear you guys and nobody else?
There was a discussion about commodities a little while ago, and platinum was brought up. And
I mean, we got 1,700 people now in the queue. That's the most I've seen.
I'm just going to keep going. Something that wasn't mentioned.
Peter, I know that it sounds like dead silence to you, but I'm actually listening to one of the speakers, and I'm going to repeat her question to you. Sphinx,
yeah, the audience
the audience
is perfectly fine. They hear all the speakers. All the audience hears all the speakers. So it's just dead silence for you, Peter.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead, Sphinx.
But I'm the one that's hosting it. That doesn't make any sense.
This doesn't always occur, Peter.
Well, maybe don't talk shit about Bitcoin, and this won't happen. I'm just kidding. But no.
Well, if I got rid of you guys as hosts, would I be able to hear them?
No, I'm just kidding.
No. You'd be down 2 people that you can't hear.
If you want to hear us, you just have to leave and join back.
So here's what you can do, Peter. This might crash the space, but you can force close the entire app, go back to your profile, and hit the reconnect button on the space that's on your.
Nah, I don't want to do that. So let's just try to do it this way.
Okay, Sphinx, be quick, please. Hurry up.
I'm going to try. So the earlier discussion about other commodities, nobody mentioned stock to flow ratio. That is extremely important.
You said the earlier discussion about other commodities, no one mentioned stock to flow ratio. Go ahead.
And that is what differentiates gold from other commodities. And the fact
that's what differentiates gold from other commodities.
And platinum was mentioned. And when you look at platinum stock.
Well, I'm just reading now on Zero Hedge. It says the Japanese stocks have been halted.
I don't think he can hear you, Diligent, either.
He can hear me. He's just ignoring your question.
Yeah, Japan.
This Japanese stocks halted.
Peter, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hey, there we go.
So, Sphinx was going to ask you about platinum. Okay? She had some questions.
You know, it's trading for under $1,000.
But you should not be. Can you tell him he should not be compared to gold, because platinum stock to flow is about 1.
The whole precious metals
He's saying that you shouldn't be bullish compared to gold because
platinum stock to flow is 1, and gold is
because
over
platinum
70.
stock to flow is 1,
and gold is over 70.
and gold is over 70.
And that gold is different than any other commodity because of that
Yeah, well,
factor.
I mean, platinum is just a commodity that has a lot of things that people use it for, and I think the price is going to go up. Just like I think the price of copper is going to
And
go
gold
up.
will
The
go
price
up
of nickel is going to
too,
go up.
with the
Zinc. I mean, everything is going to go up because the money is going to lose value. I mean, we have massive inflation in the pipeline. Look at how much money exists today that didn't exist 10 years ago. I mean, the central banks have flooded the world with paper money. Prices have to adjust by going way up, and they're going to go way up. But I like gold in particular because I think it's going to be remonetized.
So Jack, you want to try speaking now? Can you speak, Jack?
Peter, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, change phone, man. Hey, listen, been following you for years. Love your advice. Absolutely appreciate all your wisdom. Is the U.S. dollar being shorted over the last 20 years? Do you believe there's a slow process of power brokers that have been trying to short the U.S. dollar to erode its value?
Well, no, we've been eroding the dollar's value ourselves. I mean, we're eroding its value by creating too many of them and by destroying our industrial base. I mean, the U.S. economy is a shadow of what it used to be because we're running $1 trillion a year trade deficits, more than $1 trillion a year. You know, all the things that we import, we used to make. We used to own the consumer electronic business. We don't make that stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff. You go into Walmart, you walk up and down the aisles, try to find something made in America. It's difficult. But everything used to be made in America. And so we're producing less stuff and printing more money. And that's what's destroying the value. The world's been propping up the dollar by holding on to it as a reserve.
Peter.
But that's what's going to change.
Peter, I got one more. I'm going to just, rifle through this here. I watched the whole story about GameStop and shorting and how that whole mechanism worked and how it kind of backfired. And I started to think to myself, is the woke agenda that was injected into society a mechanism for shorting big corporations? Maybe it's far-fetched, but I was wondering, I'm like, it's plausible, I think. What do you think?
No, I think that's the wrong direction. But you can learn a lesson because I remember during the GameStop days and AMC and whatever these meme stocks were, I was talking about how ridiculous it was and how these things were going to crash. I even made some money. I sold a bunch of calls on these stocks and collected a bunch of premiums. I did for myself. So I made some money off of that insanity. But I pointed out, in real time, how ridiculous this was. And a lot of the things that I was hearing from the people who were buying GameStop, it was the same stuff that people were saying about Bitcoin, and it was like a microcosm of that, where people just were buying it because it was going up and they thought it would keep going as long as Bitcoin. They fizzled out, is because you're buying a company that's losing money. That it's so obvious that you're overpaying. The thing that makes it hard for so many people to see that Bitcoin is a scam is because it isn't a business. It doesn't have any earnings. So you can't say, oh, it's overpriced. Like it was so easy to say AMC can't possibly be worth what you're paying or GameStop can't possibly be worth because the company's not making any money and it's never going to make any money. And so these prices are completely divorced from reality. But with Bitcoin, there's never going to be any earnings. Everybody knows that. And so the price has nothing to do with its earnings because it can't ever have any. So it's been able to go on longer and longer and longer because Bitcoin never has to come out with an earnings report. It never has to cut its dividend because the dividend is zero. It'll never be more than zero. And so there's no bad news that can come out. That's why Bitcoin is just going to collapse when they run out of suckers, right? When you run out of greater fools, and then it implodes.
You feel like it's kind of like a Ponzi scheme almost? I'm not trying to put words.
Yes, it's a self-perpetuating Ponzi. There are a lot of things that it is. It's a chain letter. It's a pyramid scheme. I mean, this stuff has been going on. There's nothing new about Bitcoin. It's just a different wrapper. It's just a different way to wrap up an old scheme.
Okay,
Peter,
but
and
Peter,
everybody.
but Peter,
yeah.
But if you were trying to like move assets and you were trying to like be an expat and leave the United States, and you go to the Mexican border and you have a lot of gold bars and you're trying to cross, like, no. What I'm trying to point out to you is that there is a certain sense of value in terms of cryptocurrency, including Bitcoin, and because of the user base. Because
I can do that, right? But I can do that with any cryptocurrency. It doesn't have to be Bitcoin.
But what I'm saying is that like to each individual, though, you know that there's not. It's important to diversify out of fiat currency. But there are calculated risks, and they'd be associated with that, whether you move into gold, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. But and the intrinsic value of anything is yet to be determined because everything pegs to the U.S. dollar, right? Yeah. So we don't know the value of anything.
There's no intrinsic value in Bitcoin, and the only reason that it's so easy to move Bitcoin is because you're moving nothing. So yeah, I mean, it costs money to move something. And if you're moving nothing, well, then I guess it's you know, but at the end of the day, you're moving nothing, and so you haven't accomplished anything.
But if you look gold bars, if you're at the border and you're leaving the United States and you try to leave with gold bars, is there a better chance of it being confiscated versus a digital wallet that's being encrypted?
But again, I could do the same thing. I can own a digital wallet full of tokens backed by gold, and now I've accomplished.
Yes, so there is a value in terms of digital currencies. There's a value in it.
Right, when it's backed by gold, not when it's backed by nothing.
Well, no, I get it, but I think in fairness, the advice that we're trying to deliver is that, like, you know, diversify out of the way of fiat currencies, but understand
but don't diversify.
Good.
But don't diversify into Bitcoin. That's jumping out of the frying pan into the fire. Anyway, so I see the Dow is starting to move now towards the lows again. We're down about 340. In the Dow, and gold's up $10. So this is the highest I've seen gold. But let me see if I can see gold really catch a bid here. You know, it's interesting too that silver's now up 9 cents because silver, you know, has kind of been getting hit sometimes with the stock market, but it's kind of bullish now to see silver going up on a day where commodities are still getting hit pretty hard. The Japanese yen now is at a new high of the day. The yen is up now 1.6%. We're getting ready to break through the 144 handle on the Japanese yen. And the euro is also picking up some steam. The British pound has now crawled its way back to unch. So we're starting to see, again, so this is not a geopolitical thing like somebody thought. This is financial. And again, you know, this is, you know, the dollar has really lost that safe haven status because money is going into yen, money is going into the Swiss franc, which is on the high of the day right now on the Swiss franc, and gold. Those are your safe havens. Gold, yen, and Swiss francs.
Peter, I'm sorry. Alex is up here on stage. He's a small business owner. He had a question for you. Alex, let's see if he can hear you. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Peter, can you hear me, or should I just ask my question?
No, I can hear you.
Awesome. Well, Peter, first thing, just want to say, been following you for a long time, studied under Thomas DiLorenzo, who I think you know, when I was in college. So got introduced to you then, been following since. Gotten a lot of good advice from you, so appreciate that.
Okay, good. Glad I could help.
I'm going to ask a question. I just want to preface it with, I've been listening to this since about 9 o'clock, and I think what's been kind of funny is I feel like 90% of the comments that are like pro Bitcoin or crypto in general are kind of the ability to transact in crypto. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from Peter was using a service called goldmoney.com. I think in 2018, I took 10% of my net worth at the time and just bought gold there. You know, I think Carlos was just commenting on like, if I want to cross the border to Mexico, you can put your money in goldmoney.com, be redeemable at a vault.
I have a gold money account too, but there's still transaction fees associated with it.
The thing about gold money is that it ended up having to give up the very thing that it wanted to do when it was called BitGold, because the regulators killed it. And so all gold money is now is you can buy gold and you can redeem it for cash. But yeah, I mean, you can leave the country and redeem it from another address.
That's my only point. I just think the crypto folks are too focused on like the ability to exchange cash for
Yeah,
crypto or
you
crypto
don't
for
need
cash. Like, who cares?
Yeah, you don't need to be able to, but what ideally, what I would like to be a part of, and I am going to do something in that space, but what I want to, I want to empower people to put themselves back on a gold standard and to conduct commerce in gold. I would like merchants to be able to price their products and accept payment in gold, and there is going to be a drive for that over the next few years because right now there's no real demand for a gold-backed crypto because fiat currencies are working okay for transactions. They don't work as a long-term store of value, but they work in transactions. But as inflation really accelerates, and we end up, not 2% a year, but 2% a month, right? So you're looking at 24% inflation a year. It starts to become a problem for businesses managing their inventory with that kind of inflation rate. And it could go up even higher than that. So I think at some point, in order for businesses to manage their inventory and their turnover and their cash flow, they are going to be looking for an alternative way to receive payment for goods. And so that's where, a gold-backed crypto or a network that allows payments in gold is going to come into play. Right now, all the demand for crypto is people who want to get rich. It's for speculation. But ultimately, people are going to want an alternative for commerce, for a medium of exchange and a unit of account. That's where gold-backed crypto comes in, or a closed network that operates in gold. I was trying to do that with my bank, and I would have been able to do that with my bank, but the government shut it down. Right? And it's unfortunate. And, my poor customers now have spent 25 months and, they haven't gotten their money out. Now, fortunately, 75% of the money was taken out before the government shut it down because there was a run on the bank because of the lies that were told by the media based on illegal leaks from the government. Most of the customers got their money out of the bank. And the reason that I was able to send all the money out was because it was a 100% reserve bank. We didn't have any loans. So anybody who wanted their money back, we could give it back. But the reason a gold-backed crypto is so good is the whole banking system right now is insolvent. So when you take your money and you put it into a bank, you're now a creditor of that bank, and you're basically a creditor of an insolvent institution that is hoping it's going to get bailed out by the government. But if you have gold in a token, and you can now use that token for payments, the gold is yours. It's entrusted with a third party, but you haven't loaned your gold to that third party. The third party is storing your gold in a segregated vault with your name on it. You're not a creditor like you are when you have a bank account. So if I have $100,000 worth of gold and it's been tokenized, and now I have $100,000 worth of gold in my wallet, I don't have to worry about the bank failing because it doesn't matter. My gold is there. And now I can spend it. Now I can take my tokens and I can give them to the grocery store and get food. I can transact business without having to be a creditor of a bank, and without having to worry about the government wiping out the value of my money before I spend it by printing more of it because they can't print gold.
Well, so Peter, on that note, the question I wanted to ask, and I'll preface that with very sorry to hear what happened with your bank, and obviously a huge fan of everything you do. But I'm a small business owner in the Northeast. I'm a Connecticut guy. I know you've got Connecticut roots as well.
I'm in Connecticut right now.
All right. Well, I live in Florida now for tax purposes, but my business is in the Northeast. Probably a business you're familiar with, being in Puerto Rico. It's a solar business. I have and maybe there's some other people on this call.
Yeah, I live in Puerto Rico, and I just bought a solar-powered boat.
Good. Oh, good for you. I hope it was Flux Marine. They're customers of ours.
No, have you ever heard of Sunreef?
Yes, I've heard of Sunreef.
Out of Gdansk, Poland. So I bought one of theirs there, and I was just at their shipyard about a month ago. Very impressive operation. They make beautiful boats. In fact, I went out a guy that they introduced me to. When he's in Rhode Island. He took me out on his sunreef a couple of days ago. I said,
you might have met the guys from Flux Marine because they're actually based out of Rhode Island as well.
I didn't meet them. This guy just took me out on his boat.
Hopefully you paid in crypto, Peter.
I didn't pay anything. It was I did give him a bottle of wine, but it was.
Well, so yeah, the solar part is a piece of it. I mentioned that.
Yeah, well, he has a solar boat. He has a solar power boat. Yeah.
So I do residential solar systems. We install about 300 of them a month. We've got a little over 300 employees. We were considerably higher 2 years ago when interest rates were lower. It was.
Yeah. By the way, the yen just cracked 144. It's 143 now, 0.9. So the dollar's on the low of the day, yen on the high of the day. So maybe the stock market's about to. Well, Dow's only down 330. So we'll see. Go ahead.
So I'll cut to the chase. Peter, the question is, like, as a business owner who has to keep, a few $1 million in cash on hand at any time for, payroll for 300 plus people, cost of goods, running the business, like, how do you, I think a lot of this conversation has been kind of centered around like personal finances and personally trading. And I've done what I can personally, but as a business owner, small business owner, how do you sort of prepare for what's to come with, inflation and potentially dollar being devalued? And, I was a Signature Bank customer, right? So I've been through the ringer with, your bank kind of going out of business. So
it's going to be hard. There's going to be a few businesses that might see a pickup in their business based on what's going to happen, but the majority of businesses are going to be hurt. But yeah, one of the things I think businesses are going to be doing is looking for alternative ways to be paid when they can't have confidence. Let's say you're a business and you're selling widgets, right? And you sell a widget for $10, and it costs you maybe $7 to buy it, and you made a margin, and you sold it for $10. But then after you sell it for $10, when you want to buy the widget back, they now cost $12. Right, because the price has gone up since you bought it the first time, and so you just sold something for 10. It's going to cost you 12 to buy it back, and so people are going to start to, how am I going to? I can't. I got one, and then they're going to start. Well, I have to price it in gold. I got to get paid something of value so I can replace what I've sold. So I think people are going to be looking for that, but the economy is going to get weak. American consumers are going to buy a lot less, because everything's going to cost more. So I think that if you're a business, you got to try to figure out, okay, a lot of my American customers aren't going to have any money, so who am I going to sell to?
What if you're stuck in America, right? Because I'm a home service business, right? Like, we go to people's houses, we put solar panels on the roof. Maybe this is just
here's the thing.
Not super helpful for the group, but.
Well, first of all, the demand for solar panels will go up because because energy is going to be a lot more expensive.
Which is already happening. We've seen insane increases in electricity prices in the Northeast.
Yeah, so the payback, but of course it's going to cost more. The cost of producing the solar is going to go up unless, we come up with a better technology. But you're going to have more people who are incentivized to buy the solar panels because it's going to be cheaper than buying electricity. But what's going to happen, of course, is Americans are going to use less electricity because they can't afford it. So people are not going to, turn their thermostats up as much in the winter or down as much in the summers. It's just, unfortunately, Americans are going to have a lower standard of living. And
unless they get a EV or a heat pump, I guess. But I guess it's more generally
until the AI, until we can kick in and get that boost. But
exactly.
I think you said something very important in regards to a commerce system to counter the legacy systems like Amazon, and I think that's where the opportunity lies, is for a group of freedom-minded people and libertarians to create an e-commerce system that will allow the intrinsic trade of goods produced that's counter to Amazon. That may be the future. And the last person to try to attempt that was Ross Ulbricht. And where that landed him, 3 lifetime sentences for no victim crime, and that's what they hate. They hate any type of system that's being created. So I think that you're onto something there.
Well, yeah, I mean that is the biggest barrier, and again, that's what screwed up gold money. The regulators. So the government hates competition, especially when it comes to money. So the main reason you don't have lots of gold-backed tokens right now circulating is because of the compliance costs. Because the government, so you're going to do that. Well, then you're helping drug dealers and terrorists, or tax evaders. So they're able to stifle the competition by erecting barriers and imposing all these, difficult rules and regulations.
Well, since 1861, actually,
for alternatives,
you can't make
goes up. It's eventually going to come. You're gonna get the economies of scale that are able to overcome the regulatory costs.
It's not actually that you can.
Yeah, now we're 143.5. Now that the dollar yen is really starting to move. The dollar's down a full 2% now against the yen.
Alex,
let me see what's going on with these
Peter,
Nikkei
can you
futures.
hear the woman, Alex? Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so the Nikkei is down 8% now. Holy crap!
Holy shit!
So that's 8. So it's already bigger now. This is a bigger drop now, over 8% than the drop on the 5.7% drop on Friday. I mean, this is a huge move. I mean, you know what the Dow would have to do to be down 8%? How many points that would be?
A lot. Peter, if I could just cap my question with you, and then I'll put myself back on mute and pass it over. Just, again, like very general here for any business, not just mine, but I mean, if you had to keep a few $1 million in an operating account to support your business, is there any defensive play that you would recommend? Just having that much cash,
Look, I mean, I would prefer, you could keep your money in like in a different currency. You could pick the Swiss franc. It's pretty stable. I've always liked the Swiss franc. You can hold gold. I mean, gold, there's minimal downside in gold. I really don't think gold can fall much more than $100, $150 if it even falls. And so depending on how long your time horizon is, you can keep that liquidity in gold, by just buying a gold ETF or something. If you have a brokerage account that has a money market account, you can easily buy a gold ETF in there, or you could buy Swiss francs and then just convert them to dollars as you need them, or sell some of your gold ETF as you need it. I mean, so those are other ways that you could just stay liquid without taking, stock market risk or bond market risk, but just having an alternative to the dollar.
And is there somewhere we'd recommend doing that? Just again, like I know you're a business owner and have plenty of employees.
Yeah, you can have an account with AGP, where that's my company. I sold Europe Pacific Capital. I mean, you can do it at Schwab or Fidelity. Any of these firms will let you buy, and they can even give you debit cards and stuff that would, link to your account, or checking account.
Maybe someone from your team can reach out.
Huh?
Maybe someone from your team can reach out if you guys do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll call up somebody, you call up, the guys on the website, Europac.com.
Yeah, we'll do. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right, let's go to Adam. Adam, let's see if Peter can hear you. Speak up, Adam.
Hey, Peter, can you read me?
Yep, I can. Gold's up $12 now. It's slow. I'm waiting for it to really start to take off, but now it's up 0.5%. So it's moving in the right direction.
All right, Peter, big fan. I've been following you since The Big Short back then. Got into following and watching a lot of videos, so definitely a big fan, and I like your train of thought and what you were saying. What I'd like to refer you to is a product. I'm not a representative or anything. I'm not plugging it. I don't make any money off of it. It's called Paxos Gold. I just like their structure. They are a digital token backed by physical gold.
Yeah.
And
I know the Paxos people very well. I've met with them. I met with one of their key guys in London. Look, I am talking with a few companies that are in this space. There's actually a lot of people that are in the space, and there's a lot of people trying to enter the space. And I've thought about doing my own company from scratch. And so I'm going to be doing something in that space. I'm going to try to figure out who I really want to work with, who am I, who do I have the most confidence in. I'm going to take an equity position, and I'm going to be a part of something. And I'm talking to so many different people at the same time, but I do want to get involved, and so I'm going to be involved in it, whether it's Paxos or something else. But I think whatever company that I pick to really help develop and market is going to be the one that I think is really going to offer the type of product that I think is going to be the best one. But there's a lot of like-minded people that are in that space right now, and that's what I got initially involved with Gold Money, and they gave it all up. But I mean, but I want to make sure that the next company that I put my name on and I get behind, is really committed to my vision of it and building it out and sticking with it. And I have this experience now with my bank that, it really shows you why you need this. Because if I didn't have the Puerto Rican regulators and their license and all that stuff, they couldn't have done this. And of course, the only reason the Puerto Rican regulators did it was because the IRS twisted their arm behind their back. It's like they investigated my bank and they found that it did absolutely nothing wrong. And so they had no authority to do anything. So they had to go to the Puerto Rican regulators and convince them to shut down my bank. And the thing is, I had already sold the bank to a company that has another gold-backed token, G-Coin, right? That was one of the reasons I liked this company, Kinta, was because they had a gold-backed token. And I was going to kind of help them, but they also wanted to buy a bank. So it was an interesting thing. And so I introduced them to the top regulator in Puerto Rico, and she loved the idea of selling the company to these guys. She was so happy about it. And they hired a CEO to run my bank who quit her job at her other bank. She was like 1 week away from moving to Puerto Rico. I mean, we had the whole bank sold. It was a good deal for everybody. But somehow the IRS was able to convince this lady, instead of allowing the bank to be sold and all this capital injected, they convinced her to put it into a bankruptcy instead. And instead of 65 people keeping their jobs, 65 people lose their jobs. Instead of thousands of customers being able to have access to their money, those same thousands of customers haven't had any access to their money in over 2 years. I mean, the whole, and then when they did this, the chief tax guy in the United Kingdom and Australia, they kept bragging how they got my bank shut down for money laundering and tax evasion, even though there was no money laundering and no tax evasion. In fact, it was funny. I just retweeted or posted because one of the former bank employees, had commented on one of my YouTube videos, and he said he worked at the bank. And I said, "Oh, what did you do at the bank?" And he was in compliance. And he said, "Yeah, that's why it's so ridiculous, because our compliance was so hard." He said people would tell him, "Why are you asking me all these questions? None of my other banks asked me these questions. We were the most rigorous, compliant bank in existence. We put people through the ringer every time they wanted to do a transaction. And it was so hard to get an account at my bank because we had so much compliance." But then they shut me down for being insolvent. That was the official reason given, even though the bank had no loans and no debt. We were the only bank that was totally solvent, and yet they put me out of business, claiming I was insolvent. I didn't have any government insurance. I didn't need it because I didn't make a single loan. All the deposits were sitting there.
Peter, real quick. Hold on. I want to finish up with my remark. I'll be short, I promise. I just wanted to get to my point. I was just using Paxos as an example, but you guys were talking about having a wallet and being able to carry the gold. You don't want to keep gold in your house. You have this option of the blockchain, and you can redeem it for at any time in a moment's notice for US dollars at the current value. So if the money is inflating and it keeps going up, and your gold backed blockchain currency money because it's backed. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves is when people mix up currency and money. They are two different things.
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
really sends me off the edge.
And for me to clarify it, what currency is a money substitute. Currency is supposed to be backed by money. Money has value because of the intrinsic nature of the money. Money has to be a commodity. It's the most liquid commodity. It doesn't have to be gold, but gold is the best money we've come up with. Currency is a substitute for money that's backed by money. But fiat currency is not backed by money. So the difference between legitimate currency and fiat currency is that legitimate currency has money behind it. Fiat currency has nothing behind it but faith. That's the same as Bitcoin. Bitcoin has nothing behind it but faith. We got the euro's now at a new high, so it's up 0.25%. The yen's at a new high. Now the yen is up 2.3%. So it's starting to move even more. I wonder if that means that the Nikkei is getting killed even more. It's down 7.7%, so it's come a little bit off the lows. But I'm surprised, really, that the U.S. stock market is not down more. I mean, the Dow futures are still only down about 300 points, although the tech stocks now are on the lows. They're getting clobbered. The NASDAQ 100 futures are down over 3%. So this is a big deal. 3.2%. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I saw the NASDAQ down 3% at 12:30, on a Sunday night. So this is, I know that the bankers are up. Powell is on the phone with somebody right now, right? They got Morgan Stanley or Jamie Dimon or somebody is like, you got to help us out, right? The plunge protection team is trying to come up with a plan.
Can I jump into that real quick?
Let's see if he can hear some of the previous speakers who were trying to talk to him real quick. Alex, speak up and see if Peter can hear you now.
Hey, can you hear me? I hope so. I'm gonna talk anyway.
Just be quick, Alex, and I'll repeat what you say. Just be quick.
Okay. Well, either way, I'm just gonna talk. So the reason you don't have a bunch of coins that are currency that are flying around here is not because of regulatory crap. It's because it's illegal, right? There's a law from 1863 that says that Congress declares what is currency. So you can't just have a bunch of currency that's floating around.
That declares what currency and what isn't, and that's the reason why we don't have a bunch.
That's why there isn't a bunch. There isn't a bunch of regulatory bullshit. There's just a law that says.
I can't hear you.
Well, there's a law that says that. Go ahead.
Hello?
Peter, she's speaking, and I was just going to repeat what she said, but she's saying that there is a law from the 1800s that prohibits 1863 that prohibits a bunch of currencies from being produced. It's not because of a bunch of regulatory crap. It's because of that singular law, which is prevent.
I have no idea. I don't think there's.
Yes, there's one law from Congress that says Congress has the right to declare currency.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't know about. I mean.
I'll just say this, and it is what it is. Look, I'm just going to say this, and it is what it is. And
you can't make a coin unless you can make a token, but you can't produce a coin unless you're the government.
No, it's not. It has nothing to do with that.
Alex, can you just briefly just say the point, because obviously he's just hearing dead air. So if you just say the point.
So let me just. I've tried going down and coming up, and let me just go through a little bit of this, and then I'll go because my kids are going.
Yeah, that seems like it's too complex a question, and I'm not even familiar with that law.
It's a statement.
Why don't you try to take a different question?
It's not a statement.
Alex, I'm going to drop you down. I'll bring you back up. Just bear with me. Request. I'll beat you back up. We'll see if you can hear
Okay.
You come back. Love you. Let's go to Carlos. Go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Two things for Peter. The first question is in regards to investing in foreign currency. Does Euro Pacific, would you invest in either the peso or the yuan? And then the second thing is,
So we manage a fund. I manage a mutual fund, the Euro Pacific International Bond Fund, that has a portfolio of short-term debt that has the Mexican peso in it, has a lot of currencies in it, and that's a good fund if you're interested in owning just currency. But the main way that I encourage people to own foreign currencies is to own companies that are traded in foreign currencies, that pay dividends in foreign currencies, and that have most of their earnings in foreign currencies. Because I still think that there's going to be a lot of inflation. It's not just going to be in the United States. It's just going to be particularly bad in the United States. But there's going to be inflation all around the world. I mean, it's unfortunate that the central banks have unleashed this. But inflation in the United States is going to be much higher than it is in a lot of other countries, because those countries are not about to lose reserve currency status. That is something that's uniquely American.
right, so for example,
we're higher up, so we have a lot further to fall.
Yeah, so if Mexico, for example, was to peg the peso to their silver production, because I think Mexico has the first or second largest silver production and raw production of silver, it would greatly enhance their...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've always thought, the Chinese could be the first currency. Maybe the Russians will. They already kind of moved a little bit in that direction. That would really, stick it to us if they backed the ruble by gold. But, that people forget, that before the dollar was the reserve, it wasn't the British pound. It was gold, right? And even when the dollar became the reserve currency, it was just a proxy for gold, because the only reason the dollar was accepted in Bretton Woods as the reserve currency was because it was redeemable in gold. It was not just backed by gold, but it was redeemable on demand for gold. That's why they said the dollar was as good as gold, because it was gold. So the world didn't go off a gold standard until 1971. And so we've been 50 years, plus on this fiat system, and it's been a disaster. But, there are a lot of people that think, well, the dollar can't lose its reserve currency status because there's no other currency that's good. Like the euro's not going to be the reserve, the yen's not going to be the reserve, the RMB's not going to be the reserve. I agree. There are no other currencies that deserve to be the reserve currency. But that doesn't mean the dollar is going to stay there by default, because we have gold. Gold works as the reserve monetary instrument. It's worked for thousands of years. And, so we're going to go back to that. We're not going to go to Bitcoin. We're going to go to what works, which is gold.
Yeah,
now the yen is up 2.5%. So the dollar is starting to increase its rate of descent. Gold's still only up about $10. People still don't get it. Gold. How gold can only be up $10? It just shows you how few people really appreciate what's going on.
Yeah, and the second piece of my conversation I'll end here is more of a piece of gratitude to you, Peter, and your dad, Irwin Schiff, who, in my opinion, was one of America's first political prisoners. And I want to make sure to stay in line with this, but what your dad represented and what he fought for was so many things. So I hope you find peace with that, and I'll end it there.
I thank you very much. Yeah, my father was a very brave man who taught a lot of people a lot. He stood up on principle, and he ultimately paid a heavy price for that.
Jump in here, Lindsay.
Oh, sure. So, hey, Peter, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So just real quick, I was going to say to your awesome co-host, I think it would be really cool for you to do a space in the future and bring up Mark Hodes. I don't know if you know him, but he's the original Big Short guy. And he's like Mr. just knows everything about, all these different banks. And I just think you guys would have a really fun conversation because you're both so unique. And he's like he did this short for like 200 million, and he's kind of the guy that's out. I'm sure you know who he is. He knows who you are. I just texted him, and he said that he would try to come, but it would be fun to see you guys in a space together. Because
I've run into a few of the guys that have, that did that, and it's interesting too because a lot of us that did that, a lot of guys immediately, bet on gold, and one of the reasons that I didn't have a much bigger bet on that short was because I had a lot of money in gold at the time, and I made the mistake of thinking that it was so obvious that the market was going to implode that I thought the government would might start printing money to prevent it from happening. So that was kind of my fear. Like I knew real estate was going to crash and subprime was going to collapse, and I thought the government might be able to figure that out and just start printing money before it happened. And instead, they were so clueless that it happened. It happened anyway. That's how.
See, that's the thing about like you and Mark, and like there's a few other people here on Twitter. Like Mark is Alderlane Eggs at Twitter. If you look him up, that's his name here. But is like you guys have this high level of like probability. It's like that's actually what I think you know more about than just being able. It's like you're just constantly like doing these little number tricks in your mind because you're just great at probability. And it reminds me of I know what happened in 1720. Like, with the French bank. But it's kind of funny because it hits home. My husband is actually his great-great-great-great-grandfather. He's John Law, which I'm sure you know.
From John Law, yeah.
Yeah,
I always thought it would make a great movie if somebody did that with the Mississippi bubble, and it was like very interesting.
So they probably don't know this, but like, so my it's like his great-great-great-grandfather. He originated the term the millionaire. He was the person that basically got everybody to give him gold for dollars, right, or French, whatever the French currency, and then also it
was the assignate, but
but he also, the crazy thing is he toppled the French economy in a card game overnight. He was actually the richest man in the world for a very short time. But one kind of funny thing about it is everything that he did there totally like bankrupted the French economy, but it did pretty good for like a minute, right, long enough, and he patented the British pound and all these funny things. But what was kind of cool is the West Company is the company that came to the U.S., and then they did the purchase.
I lost you.
They originated the Louisiana Purchase, obviously, and everything that kind of like he had taught actually really worked really well here. And this is where like kind of I think maybe what you're saying, because like everybody always like falls back on printing money, it makes things bad. Well, see, John Law actually didn't believe that. He believed printing money was fine as long as you did back it with gold, as long as the guy that was telling you to do it was getting gold. But the other thing that he said was it was about moving the money. It was about translating the money, like transferring it, like sending it to other countries, export, import. So to be fair, that's a lot of what they did, obviously, and that did build the U.S., like the West Company. So Adam, what's the guy, like the Wealth of Nations guy? He pretty much like took...
That's Adam Smith. But what built America was freedom and capitalism.
100%.
That's what built it.
But people
we had the freest country in the world for a while there, and that's why we were so
free. But mainly they owned slaves. That was the other problem, right? So they were pretty free, but not everybody was free.
Remember, the North was a lot more prosperous than the South, and the North didn't have the slaves. And I think the Southern economies would have been even stronger if they didn't have the slave. Remember, slavery was a very inefficient labor system because it basically cost the slave owner about 90% of the productivity of a slave to support the slave. You had to house them, you had to feed them, you had to clothe them, and of course the slaves, they weren't incentivized to work very hard because they didn't get to keep what they produced. So they weren't the greatest workers. And of course, I would have worked as little as, I don't blame the slaves for not wanting to work hard. Who the hell would want to work hard for somebody else? But a voluntary system where you pay workers wages and they're incentivized to work harder to earn more, that's a much more efficient economic system than slavery. Not only is slavery immoral, but it's bad. It is better to pay somebody to work for you than to enslave them, right? So slavery was not a good economic system too, apart from being immoral.
But under this,
I think America would have been even wealthier had we gotten rid of slavery sooner.
It's almost like we're debt slaves right now, though, right? Like we're actually.
Well, the irony of it is, we keep less than a slave, but it's better. Look at serfdom. Medieval serfdom was a system where you worked and the serf turned over 25% of his income to the Lord. And that was considered a very oppressive system to have a 25% income tax. Well, most Americans would love to only pay 25% of their income in taxes. So Americans today are less free than medieval serfs, and we did it to ourselves.
Alex, why don't you see if Peter...
Now, I emancipated myself by moving to Puerto Rico.
A lot of my affluent friends are moving to Puerto Rico or are already living there because of the taxes. It's crazy how many people I know who are either moving there or already living there. I wasn't even aware of that until these last.
Yeah. Now the currency things. So now the Swiss franc is up 1.15%. This is the high of the day, and the Australian dollar is now on the low of the day. It's down 1/3%. And so when you see stuff like that, when you see like the Aussie dollar going down and the Swiss franc and the yen going up, that's about economic growth and people starting to worry about recession and that impact. And that's what's going to put pressure on the Fed to cut rates, and why I don't think they can wait until the September meeting. But, it's interesting, too, because, again, on my podcast 2 weeks ago, I said the Fed needs to cut rates at this meeting. I said they can't wait until September, because if they don't cut in July, they're going to be screwed because the markets are going to tank. Because I could see that building. And if he comes out and says, we need more data, we're still thinking, I said, that's it. It's going to happen. And now they got to scramble. Now, but it's amazing that even though they're doing it wrong, they still can't do the wrong thing the right way. That's how incompetent these guys are.
Alex, what?
People think the Fed is so smart. They think these guys got their jobs because they're smart. That's not why they got their jobs. They got their jobs to be rubber stamps for the politicians. We don't have the smartest people at the Fed. They're not even close to the smartest people. Yet they're trying to, micromanage the economy with their monetary policy.
Alex, why don't you see if he can hear you now?
Can you hear me now?
He can't hear you. Adam, go ahead. Alex,
Yeah.
give it a minute, because I noticed that some people sat on stage and tried, and then you could hear them. Go ahead, Adam.
All right. It seems like I've got an exclusive with Peter Schiff. What an honor.
I can hear you now. Whoever that is, that Adam?
Yeah, that's Adam. Yeah, you struck a lot of tingling feelings in my head when you said voluntary and serfdom. I'm very big on Friedrich Hayek's Road to Serfdom. Of course, Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith.
And the road to serfdom is paved with good intentions, right? Like all roads.
Of course it is. So what I envision in my own mind is a voluntary system. Let's say you have your W-2 forms, you sign up with your employer. You get a list of government sectors, military, all sorts of programs that they have to sell us on. And then other people could propose programs, social programs, whatever, that people want to voluntarily involve themselves in, right?
But taxes,
so you can go from 0 to 100% as much as how much you want to donate support.
Taxes can't be voluntary. They have to be a mandatory.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying taxes. I'm saying a voluntary system where you sign up with your employer, you get a list of programs, and if you want to donate from 0 to 100%, you are welcome to. You're a young student and you're struggling and trying to make payments and bills, you could give 0% to whatever programs you
but here's the problem with that. Charity shouldn't go to the government because the government is a horrible administrator of charitable funds. You see, whenever the government is in charge of a charity or trying to, let's say the government wants to help poor people, right? Every dollar they take in taxes, they keep 90 cents, and 10 cents goes to the poor people. Whereas if you give $1 to a charity, they keep 10 cents and they give 90 cents to the poor people. So all of our charitable work, our philanthropic work, should be done through the private sector. We don't want the government involved in that at all. Plus, when you have the private sector to help the poor, the goal is to have fewer people that are poor. When you have a government program to help the poor, their incentive is to create more poor people so that they have a bigger need for the program. So it actually backfires. That's why the government lost the war on poverty, right? Poverty won. We declared war on poverty, and the government created more poverty. That's how government works. So the key is to keep government as small as possible and to do as little as possible. That was the idea of the founding fathers, and that's how we started this country. And so we want to get rid of income taxes. There should be no taxes. Your employer should take no money out of your pay. You should earn 100%. The only taxes we should have are duties, import taxes, excise taxes, taxes on articles of consumption, and taxes should not be high enough that they even bother anybody. But in order to get there, we have to get the government out of Social Security and Medicare and government and student loans and housing and all the things that it never should have gotten into in the first place.
Solyndra, the EV projects that they're trying to set up, the charging stations, of course.
All of that. The government doesn't do any of that. The private sector does that, right? We don't want the government to do any of that stuff. That's not what government can do. We need the government to they can run the army, you know. It's about, you know, they can't even deliver the mail. Look at how inefficient the post office is, right? They can't even do mail. And so we want to entrust more of the economy with the government. In fact, if you look at the stuff that has gone up in price the most, it's healthcare and education. Where is the government most involved? Healthcare and education. Where is the government least involved? Technology. What's happened there? Stuff gets cheaper. Stuff gets better. Wherever, even like in healthcare, where is the government not involved? Whoa, LASIK, plastic surgery, right? LASIK. So that stuff has gotten more efficient. The prices have come down, right? So even areas of healthcare, as long as you can find where the government is least involved, that's where you have the most innovation, right? That's where you have, costs coming down. Right, so we just got to get the government out of as much stuff as we possibly can.
Well, maybe Peter.
What's going to be the problem, though?
Amen, Peter.
Is this crash that's coming, that may already be underway, is going to get blamed on the free market?
Peter, with the elections being so topical, this might be interesting for everybody on the space to get your 2 cents. I mean, if you could change, maybe pick 2 or 3 things with the government and kind of how things are going, if you could just, snap your fingers and pick 3 things, like what would be the 3 things you would change?
Well, there's no quick solution to the problem. So, as I said, we have to go through the pain.
Well, that's why the question. That's why the question's interesting. It's almost like a marry, fuck, kill type question. You got to pick 3.
But I don't know. I just want to go back to I want to go back to the Constitution. I want the government to stop doing everything that is not authorized by the Constitution.
Can we go imaginary? Because I feel like this is kind of a fun.
Look, we got to get rid of the Fed, but we can't turn over the money presses. So we have to go. We have to go back to a gold standard and get rid of.
Is that even possible?
Gold standard.
Gold standard to go back to the gold standard. I've heard the argument.
It's very possible. It's very possible.
Let's get Peter's 3 because I feel like this is actually an awesome question. So
we got to get rid. So one of them is to get rid of the Fed and to go back to the monetary system that existed prior to the Fed. But if we can't do that, to at least go back to the monetary system that existed before 1971, which at least where the Federal Reserve notes were backed by dollars. But I want to make them convertible, not just internationally. Everybody has to be able to go to the Federal Reserve Bank and get real money for their notes. We have to be back on a sound constitutional monetary system. That's one thing. Number 2, I want to get slash government spending across the board. I want to end Social Security, Medicare, all those programs. And we have to come up with a one-time government solution, for people who are now going to be broke when they don't get Social Security, Medicare, some way of, figuring out who is poor enough that they get
off?
some kind of. But I also want to default on the national debt. So that's going to be.
I think your third answer and defaulting on the national debt kind of go hand in hand. And
here's my thinking
on that. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, here's my thinking. You see, I'm not going to say to somebody on Social Security, you were promised that you were going to get all this money and you can't have it because we're broke. I'm not going to tell somebody they're not going to get Social Security, but then tell somebody who owns a bond, you're going to get your principal and your interest, right? That's not fair. So everybody who has been promised something from the government is going to have to get a lot less than they were promised. That is the reality. And that is going to happen no matter what. See, my solution is honest. The government gives people less money than they were promised, or they don't give them any money. But what's going to happen is that everybody is going to get their money. It's just that the money is not going to buy very much, or maybe nothing at all, right? And so that's the worst way to default. Inflation is the worst possible way that the government breaks its promises. But it's the politically easiest way to do it, because they can blame other people. So that's why the investment strategy has to be preparing for inflation, because that's the only way this thing is going to end. With runaway inflation.
Because no politician wants to make the hard choices. So I think your three picks are amazing. And I think the only thing that saves us, because no politician's going to do what you just said. I think what you just said is genius. And if I remember correctly, when I was younger, I think you were maybe running for some Senate or something in Connecticut against.
I was running. I ran in a primary, 2010.
Yeah. You needed Diamond Dallas Page or somebody to give her whatever the special move was at the time. But no, I think what you just said is perfect, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. I see the only potential life raft for us is actually robotics and AI, and I think it's actually undervalued. I took a long Uber ride the other day. And I asked the Uber driver, I said, hey, are you worried about self-driving taxis? And the guy's like, no, not at all. And I'm like, well, that's going to be a thing. And then what do you do? But if you expand that and you think about how fast this humanoid robot movement is happening, do you have any thoughts on 10, 20, 30 years from today where probably 90% of professions that happen today, with the exception, in my opinion, of highly skilled labor, I think about it, I deal with electricians, are electricians going to be working people's main service panels, or is it going to be a robot? In my opinion, robot.
Look, I mean, hopefully, now you're talking about a much longer time horizon, but yes,
But that's not that long, 10, 20 years, that's our lifetime. I don't think that's that unrealistic.
No, but we got to get through the next couple of years. But the thing is, yes, I do believe that, we will have, robots that will be able to perform a lot of the tasks that humans are doing.
I actually think it's hard to think of what tasks they won't be doing that we're doing.
Yeah, they could, ultimately they should be able to do everything. So, but all that means is that we get more leisure, right? Because
that's what I'm wondering. I actually and I'm an Austrian, economist. Again, I studied under Thomas de Lorenzo. I believe in all that. I feel like we're either kind of going towards this, falling off a cliff, or potentially utopia, where maybe there is enough labor in the market that is so cheap that maybe provides a world where people.
Well, there's labor again, but governments are preventing it from being utilized because of minimum wages and other taxes.
And unions will probably stop it. That was the number one thing that came to mind for me, where I was like, if I pay an electrician $65 an hour in Massachusetts, and I have a robot who can do it for $5 an hour in cost of robot and electricity, what's going to happen? Unions are going to step in the way. But
I think but remember, the people who benefit the most from lower prices are the poor and the middle class. So it's you don't want to stop progress. The people live much better today because we have machines. we have a lot of tools that we didn't have in the past, and so we're a lot more productive than we were in the past. And moving more towards robotics and AI just it's all beneficial, right? The only negative, right? You got some people that think, well, the AI is just going to become self-aware, or it's going to decide to wipe us all out. But I don't know. But anyway, I might as well mention, I've been saying this for the hour and a half, that I thought that Bitcoin and Ether were forming bear flags, and they've just broken down to the downside out of those flags, particularly Bitcoin. So Bitcoin just broke through 53,000. So we just had a 52 handle on Bitcoin. So we are now where I said we were going to be early this morning. I warned about this in the morning. I said Bitcoin, it can crash. It just went below 58,000. And I said if we take out the March low, which was like 53,000 and change, before Monday, I said we could have a Black Monday in crypto. And it really looks like it is going to be a Black Monday in crypto. And we could just implode between now and the open. And what's been happening in Bitcoin ever since these ETFs have come out, that's where the buying has been, right? They've been buying the dip through the ETFs. And what I've been telling people in crypto is think about who's selling, right? Because we know who's buying. Mom and pop retailers who are buying these ETFs. Who is selling?
Leverage longs.
There are a lot of people that kept saying, why isn't Bitcoin going up?
Peter.
Right? With all these ETFs, Peter, why is it going down?
The answer is leverage longs.
Because the smart money was waiting for the ETFs to get out.
Yeah.
Right? And I think there's a lot of big, I guess big whale is redundant. But while all these whales are telling you guys to hodl, never sell, never sell, never sell, guess what? They're selling.
It's been leverage longs, Peter.
Is getting out of Bitcoin, and they want to make sure all the minnows stay in.
Joe,
right?
You can't hear.
And this thing,
I'll jump down.
But the question is, I don't think that the money's coming in, and the failure of these Ethereum ETFs, and I kept saying that, right? And people, when people were talking about these Ether ETFs and how it was going to be bullish, I said exactly what was going to happen. I said the money to go into the Ether ETFs is going to come out of Bitcoin. I said there's no more crypto money on the sidelines. They're already all in. Their crypto bets are on the table in Bitcoin. And when they bring these ETFs to the market with Ether, the money is going to come out of Bitcoin. It's not going to come from some other pool, because all the people that want to jump in the crypto pool were already all in on Bitcoin. And of course, the reason that so many people were all in on Bitcoin was the moon. And think about this. We just had this Bitcoin convention, right, which was, in Tennessee, or in Nashville. And you had politicians promising to buy Bitcoin with taxpayer money, and then you had other people hyping up, Hong Kong is going to buy Bitcoin. The race is on.
Already control of a number.
Hold on. And that couldn't make Bitcoin go up. Can you imagine a few years ago how much Bitcoin would have gone up if people started talking about the U.S. government creating a Bitcoin fund? Imagine the impact that would have had. Bitcoin would have doubled or tripled, right? But it can't go up anymore. It's done, right? The game is over, and the air is going to come out of this thing very, very quickly. And so Bitcoin now is 52.8, and it's going to break. It's probably going to break 50,000. Within the next few minutes.
And you think the government's going to dump what it has in Bitcoin before the election?
I think they're going to sell. Well, if Trump wins, I think they will for sure sell before he's inaugurated.
So Peter, if Bitcoin breaks down to the 40s, it's still a better performing asset than gold for the year, number one. Number two, it's not a mystery, right? We can see where the... Hey, let me finish. You've been talking for a long time, but just let me finish, okay? Give me 30. Give me Peter.
This is my this is my show here.
Space, so.
But also, forget about on the year. Bitcoin is now down better than 40% against gold over the past 3 years. So Bitcoin has been trending.
Well, you sound
down
like
for
you
3
think
years.
you think gold should be a sizable part of everybody's portfolio. Is that fair?
No, I've told people that gold should be 5 to 10% of a portfolio. If you think that's sizable.
How much? You broke up for a second. What was it?
5 to 10%.
Okay, why? Why do you think? Hearing all this, why do you think gold should be a very small part of someone's portfolio?
How much do you think Bitcoin or crypto should be of someone's portfolio? Because it sounds like you're a crypto guy. No, not for you, Peter.
Zero. Well, I think it should be
guy,
zero.
Alex, who's shooting on your idea that 5 to 10% of gold's too much. How much do you think?
I'm just trying to. First of all, for some investors, it should be zero. It depends. You can't get broad allocations. I think it's irresponsible to say broad allocations for any individual.
Let's say the average.
So Peter's telling people that gold should be 5% of everyone's portfolio, which that's
let me tell you what I'm saying. I said everybody should have at least 5 to 10% of a portfolio in gold.
How much is in your portfolio?
Some people,
what's your portfolio?
Let me finish. Let me finish. I think that depending on your circumstances, because gold is a store of value. It's not an investment, right? And so a lot of it depends on if you think investments are expensive, if you think real estate is expensive, if you think stocks are expensive, and you want to just stay liquid and hope to buy those assets cheaper, then you would increase your holdings of gold. Now, for me personally, I have about 50% of my stock portfolio in gold and silver mining companies. Now, that's a big weighting. That's more than I recommend that people have. The reason I have such a big position in gold and silver mining companies is they're businesses, they are investments. Most of my gold mining stocks pay good dividends. I mean, they're not huge, 2, 3, 4% dividends. I'm getting dividend income on my gold stocks, but I think that those businesses are going to be insanely profitable within a few years, right? Because I think the price of gold is going to rise far more dramatically than the cost of mining it. So I want to be in that business. I want to be in the gold mining business. So I happen to have a lot of my own stock portfolio.
What about physical gold? Physical gold? What percentage of your portfolio?
Yeah, there it's lower because I have so much. I'd say my physical holdings of gold are probably 3 to 5%. I'm low because I've got so much in gold stocks, right? Because when I own gold stocks, I own the gold in the ground, right? Because that's my goal as a shareholder. But most people don't have 50% of their portfolio in gold stocks. And so they might want to have more in just, gold, physical gold. But gold is like cash. It's money. It's not an investment. But Bitcoin is neither an investment nor money. Do some people like to buy lottery tickets? Do they like to bet on football or basketball? Okay, yeah. So how much is your portfolio should you use to bet sports? Well, you shouldn't use any of your portfolio to bet sports. You should use your entertainment money. The money that you like to spend on entertainment, that's your gambling money. So if you want to gamble with money on Bitcoin, if that's how you enjoy that, instead of going to a casino and playing blackjack, if you want to buy Bitcoin, go ahead and do it. But don't confuse that with making an investment. It's not an investment. And it's not money. You're just gambling that the price goes up. You want to do it, do it. But I just think now you got so many people.
You're gambling at the price of gold, but hang on, Peter. You just said the majority of your money, 50%, is in gold miners, and you're gambling on the price of gold going up. There's zero distinction.
No,
there is none.
That's not a gamble.
It absolutely is.
Prudence.
You're betting at a greater fool buying more gold to push up the price of gold, so the gold miners make more money.
It's got nothing to do with
it. It absolutely does.
No, it's the thing is,
there's no fundamental reason why gold has to go up.
Joe, give it enough time.
No, but I am making a prudent speculation that based on what I know about economics. But
my brother-in-law puts 50% on black. He makes a prudent speculation.
No, that's a bet. That's not a speculation.
That's a bet. You're defining the same term. They're identical.
No, it's not. It is pure random chance. Speculating. Look, when I shorted subprime and made a bunch of money on that, I was speculating. I wasn't just betting. I was able to calculate odds and probability.
What's the probability of gold going up over the next year? What's the probability? Tell everybody in the audience.
It's more likely to go up than go down.
So 50%.
I'd say the probability is very high.
So 50% of your portfolio is based on the fact that you have a 50% chance of making money. Is that right?
No, but the other half of my portfolio is invested in non-gold mining stocks that have absolutely nothing to do with gold
NVIDIA? You're buying NVIDIA?
No, I don't have NVIDIA. No.
What are you buying? Consumer staples?
I own Taiwan Semiconductor though. No, I own a lot of defensive stocks. I own a lot of food and beverage stocks. I own tobacco stocks. I own energy stocks. I own a lot of pharmaceutical stocks. How long have you owned agriculture stocks. A lot of the stocks that I own hit 52-week highs on Friday. Right, so I've got a defensive portfolio of value stocks, and I get a lot of dividend income on my stocks. But then my stock portfolio isn't all I have. I've got real estate. I've got other assets. I respect that.
You're diversified.
I've invested in startups. I've got a portfolio of private companies that I've funded. So I've got that I don't even look at as part of my stock portfolio, right? So I have a well-rounded, diversified investment portfolio. But what I don't have is any cryptocurrencies, and I don't have any Bitcoin. And I have no intention of buying any because I understand what it is. But meanwhile, so Bitcoin we didn't crack 50,000 yet. We got down to 52,300. But it was 63,000 on Friday. And now it's 52,000. And gold is up, by the way. And gold was up. Bitcoin was down 10% last week, and gold was up 2%. So they're extremely different.
You think that we're going to dip below 50 by the time the market opens tomorrow?
Excuse me?
You think that we're going to hit below 50 by the time the market opens tomorrow?
Do I think what?
You think we're going to see it below 50 before the doors open tomorrow?
Well, I think it's probably going to trade below 50,000 before Monday morning. Whether it opens below 50,000, we'll see. I mean, there will be at some point, right? Some money will try to buy the dip. But this could be the waterfall event. I mean, these Bitcoin ETFs are the wild card. We've never had a big drop where the ETFs were really selling. They've been buyers. There was probably like 1 day, maybe 2 days, ever since these ETFs were launched, where we had net outflows. Every day we've had inflows. But now we have all this Bitcoin in these ETFs. And if we get massive liquidation because the market is down 20%, 30%, and the people who bought it are like, holy shit, I better sell this. I never thought I could lose this much money this quick.
Peter, what are you talking? Peter, at the end of June, okay, listen, let's just talk the facts, okay? At the end of June, Bitcoin was trading above 70,000, and we sold down all the way to 53, 1,000 more than we're at right now. You're telling me that the ETFs weren't in existence at the end of June? That's just not true.
You didn't have nearly as much money.
What are you talking about? At the end of June, you had $10 billion in ETFs. Why are you telling thousands of people inaccurate information? You had $10 billion in ETFs at the end of June, and we sold down 20,000. You think it's going to be different this time?
Well, it's back down there again.
Yeah, it is back down there again. And why do you think it's going to be different? How do you know it won't bounce up 10 grand in the next 2 weeks? You have no idea.
Why is it? Look, why isn't Bitcoin already much higher given all the
because
hype?
People friend run the moon. You want to know the real answer? I'll give it to you. and I've been saying this publicly for months, people front ran the move for the ETF launch. They positioned ahead of the launch, expecting some big boom to 100K, and the majority of the move came before the ETF's launch, and it's been consolidating basically since the launch.
Well, we'll see. I don't think these ETF buyers are married to these positions, and maybe some of them didn't sell on that first dip, but I think this next dip will shake them out.
Or it could be the second double bottom, right? Like, you don't know. Nobody knows.
You know what? You do whatever you want with your money.
I have. You know what I have, and I know that I've had friends and family who've been in gold for 10 years, sitting watching the Nasdaq and Bitcoin and everything else rip in their face, and it's wishing they had other assets other than gold.
Well, they should have. Whoever told them to put all their mony in gold? I know.
I'm glad it's responsible that you believe in it. And to your credit, right? I've been following you for a while. Since 2022, you've openly stated that gold is a very small part of your portfolio, which I respect, and I hope it's important that all the thousands of people hearing this are hearing that Peter agrees that gold should be a very small part of your portfolio.
Well, but gold is not an investment, and neither is Bitcoin. Bitcoin should be zero in your portfolio.
Right, and gold should be less than 5% by your own admission.
Isn't some of this happening?
No, I said that everybody should have 5 to 10%, but a guy like me who's got 50% of his stock portfolio in gold mining stocks, okay, I mean that means that I don't need as much in physical gold, because I just think that the gold mining stocks are really, really cheap. But, again, I've thought that for a while, and they're still cheap. But, a lot of my gold stocks hit 52-week highs on Friday before they reversed and closed lower. But we're just starting to move in these stocks. But, look, I think the people who are in gold that you're saying are upset, they're about to make a lot of money. And the people who are in Bitcoin are about to lose a lot of money. That's what I think is going to happen. But let's move on to somebody else, because it's getting late. I can't keep doing this.
Let's go to chat. He's someone new. Let's see if you can hear him. And then, thanks. Great space, by the way, Peter. This is your co-host, Diligent. So thanks for having us on. Go ahead, Chet.
Hey, thanks a lot. I have a hard money question.
Chet, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're really quiet, Chet.
I'm watching that national debt clock keeps ticking up here. But the stock market, surprisingly, the stock market is rallying a bit. The Dow's only down 260.
Some of what happened with Bitcoin, too, is also in response to Genesis Global Capital liquidating like $1.5 billion in holdings that they had in Bitcoin as they restructured. So, I mean, there is multiple things to take into account here. Like, the global markets reacting to, possibly impending war, and also the restructuring of some of these major capital firms. Lindsay, go ahead.
Yeah, that was one of the other things earlier. I think it was you, Diligent, that said it, but somebody else might have also, you were talking about different investments that were kind of like more real world, and I think, a better position for people that are maybe trying to diversify from Bitcoin, or other things that they're invested in that they might know more about because of just the kind of style of this space and where people are on X, just speaking to the room, but was defense. I think we were talking about semiconductors, we were talking about, the different foreign.
Yeah.
But the defense spending, I think, is a big one, Lockheed and the traditional, those traditional types of contractors and businesses that support defense. What do you think about those kinds of stocks?
Well, the defense stocks are also, unfortunately, make money because, the government keeps starting wars and perpetuating wars. I don't actually own the defense stocks, but I can see an argument for them, as the recipients of government spending. But I think at some point, governments are not going to be able to spend because they're going to be broke. And so I don't think long-term the defense stocks are as good a defensive stock as the type of stocks that I own. I don't want to be dependent on government spending for my revenue stream. I think that most of the companies I own, they derive a lot of their earnings abroad. Most of their earnings are abroad. And I think that the key is going to be earnings from the emerging markets, because it's the countries that have been saving and producing the most. that are going to benefit the most from the reordering of the monetary system. They're not going to be subsidizing American extravagance anymore. They're not going to be living beneath their means to enable Americans to live above their means. They're going to consume more of what they produce. And so I want to own businesses that are positioned to benefit from that. And that's something that I've been positioned for a long time, because as I said earlier in this, in this spaces, that it has already surprised me based on what I thought years ago, that we've been able to successfully kick the can down the road for as long as we have. But because we've succeeded in doing this, we've actually made the problems that I was concerned about that much worse. And so I think the reward for having the proper positions is going to be even greater because it was delayed. I think the dollar's collapse is going to be greater than it would have been had it collapsed sooner. I think the damage to the U.S. economy is greater than had it happened sooner. I mean, had the dollar collapsed and had we had a debt crisis 10 years ago, we'd be hopefully, well into recovery by now. We've been digging the hole even deeper. And, now we're in the Grand Canyon. And that's one of the reasons I just keep thinking it's so difficult to kick this can any further as everything implodes now, because we're just about to go to the next easing cycle. The Fed raised rates as far as it could, and it only got to 5.25%, which is nothing, and that was as high as it could go. And it shrank the balance sheet, but it never even got down to seven trillion. And it's about to cut rates again. It's about to go back to QE, and we're from where we are right now, that could be a toxic dose of stimulus that finally kills the patient.
Right. Let's see if you can hear Chet now. Go ahead, Chet, because he's...
Hey, can you hear me?
Can you hear him, Peter?
Yeah. We got the yen down. The dollar yen's on the lows again, down 2.4%. But I don't know what's going on with the Nikkei. Oh my gosh, the Nikkei's down almost 12% now. Holy crap! What? I don't get that. So you're talking. I mean, this is almost like a Black Monday over there in Japan. I mean, in fact, this has got to be one of the biggest down days. 12% following yesterday's drop. How is it that the U.S. stock market futures are holding up this good? I mean, now the NASDAQ is now down 4%. Now, remember I said that tech stocks were down, and this is what the only thing that's holding up the Dow. And I said this, and I've been saying this for the last 2 weeks on my podcast. And if you haven't heard those last two podcasts, go to my YouTube channel or go to Shift Radio and listen, watch my last two podcasts. But what we're seeing in the futures market is the rotation out of momentum into value as investors are pricing out the soft landing and pricing in the hard landing. So that's the reason that the Dow is only down 0.7%, because some money that is coming out of tech is going into the type of stocks that are in the Dow Jones. Now, the S&P 500 is down almost 2% because of the tech weighting in the S&P. But we're now talking about a 4% drop in the NASDAQ so far. And the Russell 2000 futures are down 3.5% because those are more economically sensitive stocks. And they had kind of a sucker rally not too long ago. Very recently, we had a big spike in those stocks, but now they're getting killed. And, we should be down in bear market, in official bear market territory in the NASDAQ by next week. I think we're in correction territory. We were down 10% on Friday, a little over 10%. But we could easily go down another 10% this week. We're already down 4% Sunday night. But so those markets are going down. Gold is still, gold has gone back to unch. So yeah, they're still not getting it. I mean, at least gold's not negative, but it's back down to unchanged. So it's still not happening. But anyway, what's the next question?
Yeah, thanks for bringing me up here. So my question is a hard money question. So in order
You can
to,
hear you first, Chet.
can you hear me?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can hear you. Go ahead, Chet.
So in order to produce Bitcoin, you need energy and compute. And last week, a lot of the publicly traded miners released their earnings reports. Marathon Digital Holdings, Riot, CleanSpark. And on a cost revenue basis, it's around $40,000 to $50,000 to produce one coin, based on the commodities they need to use in order to produce it. So my question for you is, given that Bitcoin needs valuable commodities and it's backed by that, given that you need it to produce it, and by the way, to also transact within the network, peer to peer. Given that, how could it be that Bitcoin is not a form of hard money?
Okay, so that's a good question, and so I'll answer it for you, because one of the reasons that gold has value, right, is you can't just create gold. It takes work. You have to physically mine it and use energy, and so there's real work. And when you have an ounce of gold, that represents a lot of the effort that it took to produce the gold. Whereas with paper money, you just create it out of thin air. It requires no work. Bitcoin also requires work, right, to produce it. But at the end of the day, all that labor and all that energy was wasted. I mean, think about it this way. What if I hired a bunch of people to dig a hole in the ground, and they spent a lot of human energy digging this big hole, and then I paid another group of people a bunch of money to put the dirt back in the hole? So I have all these people digging holes and filling them back up again, right? So we've done a lot of work, right? But have I created anything? No, I have nothing, right? All of that labor, all of that work was a complete waste because I have nothing to show for it. When you mine gold and you use labor and energy to produce gold, you end up with gold, right? Let's say I have an ounce of gold. That ounce of gold can make a certain number of computer chips. It can be used to make a certain amount of jewelry. It can be used to make crowns for dentists, or it can go into aerospace. Right? I actually have a commodity, or it could be used by a central bank to back, as a monetary reserve, as a store of value. There are all these uses for that gold. So I've used these resources to extract a useful metal out of the ground that I didn't have before, and now I have it. But with Bitcoin, you have to use all those resources, and at the end of the day, you have nothing. Right? You just have a string of numbers that was generated by a computer, but you don't have anything. Right? Now, yes, right now I have something that gamblers want to buy because they think other gamblers will pay more for it later on. So yes, there is a market for Bitcoin. So those Bitcoin miners are willing to use this energy that, of course, could have been used for something else, but they used it to create nothing that people want to buy. But at some point, people are going to stop wanting to buy nothing. And then the price of Bitcoin is going to fall to the intrinsic value of Bitcoin, which is zero, right? So that's going to happen. And all this money has been wasted. But unfortunately, people are just going to learn this lesson the hard way, by losing their money. And, the best thing about Bitcoin is most of the people who lose all their money are young. And so they have a lifetime to earn it back and to learn a lesson. And I don't even feel bad for young people I don't even feel bad for, 20-something-year-old kids that lose their money in Bitcoin. They have a lifetime to make it back. Yeah, I hear. Where I feel bad is older people who have put their IRA money in Bitcoin. That is really unfortunate. people who are going to lose money that they don't have the time to re-earn.
Peter, your co-host can't hear you.
So, no, I would get it. Hey, the markets, just FYI, the market, this is important. The market's really starting to sell off now. The Dow is almost down 400 points. So that's a new, almost right back on the lows. And the NASDAQ is making new lows. NASDAQ futures now down 4.25%. This is kicking off. Where surprisingly, Bitcoin's not making a new low, but the stock market is.
Interesting. Go ahead, Lindsay, get in here.
Yeah, I just think so. There's some things like where I feel like you're so like close to almost like saying the similar things that the Bitcoin people are saying. Like, and I'm just sitting here listening and almost like laughing because I'm not saying anything bad about your position on Bitcoin, Peter, but it's funny because like I realized you want everything backed by gold, and I'm not against it. I've never been bullish on Bitcoin either. After FTX, I think everybody who's traditional in the investment world was like, the knee jerk is no, nothing, anything, even remotely crypto, right? For a moment, at least, like everyone's pausing, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be forever. But again, I harken back to John Law, and I harken back to like the fact that currency is something that, and even in the US right now, it's backed by proof of stake. It's backed by the government says it's okay and you should use it.
Well, it's not backed. The currency isn't backed by anything other than the fact that it's legal tender, and you need it to pay your taxes.
Right, but we believe that
let me
it's
just correct
valuable,
one thing that you said. I don't sound like the Bitcoin people. The Bitcoin people sound like me, because I was saying all this stuff about hard money and fiat currency and the Fed and all the things that the Bitcoiners are using to justify buying Bitcoin, right? I was saying that before they ever heard about Bitcoin. So they've taken the free market critique of the current monetary system and used it to promote and hype up Bitcoin. That is something that's very unfortunate, because they're promoting the wrong thing. But one thing that the Bitcoiners have been able to do, that they've reached a lot of people. A lot more people know what a fiat currency is than knew 5 or 10 years ago, and they know about it because of Bitcoin. But it's unfortunate that they didn't buy gold or silver. Now, yes, have they made more money in Bitcoin on paper than had they bought gold and silver? Yes, but they haven't sold it because they're still holding it. So, it's like there's this song, don't count your money while you're sitting at the table, right? Right? You wait until the game is over. Well, if you bought Bitcoin, I don't care if you bought it at $500, $1,000, $5,000, if you haven't sold any of it, you don't know what you have yet. You got all your chips on the table. Yeah, there are some people that got out of a lot of Bitcoin, and they're playing with the house's money. Okay, they can't lose. They took their original money and a bunch of profits off the table. But so many people have been told never sell, and there are some people that have actually borrowed against their Bitcoin, and they're going to get margin called out of those positions. That they have there. But yeah, so they think they made money, but they just have a stack of cryptocurrencies, and then the price is going to crash. And it's unfortunate, because now a lot of those people are going to think, I guess fiat money is good. I guess that was a bunch of shit. That was a crock of bullshit that I heard, because I have a lot less fiat currency now than when I bought my Bitcoin. So it's going to backfire. And that's what I said from the beginning. It's going to actually help make the government look good because it's going to discredit a lot of the concepts and the ideas that Bitcoin advocates have promoted. Because because that's what Bitcoin is associated with. And I mentioned earlier what really burns me about like a CNBC, like when I used to talk about the debt problem and the Federal Reserve and tell people to buy gold, right, instead of dollars, they would jump all over me. that's crazy. You're just trying to sell gold. You got a gold company. That. Yet people come on and say exactly what I was saying, and then they say buy Bitcoin. Oh, they eat it all up. Oh, yeah. They never question their objectivity. They never say, well, you're just trying to sell Bitcoin because you own a Bitcoin company, a crypto company. Your whole livelihood is crypto. Gold was a side business for me. And I never sold my own gold. I just help people buy gold from other people. But you have all these people that have created crypto businesses. Their whole lives are based on people buying Bitcoin and they go on CNBC and they say, oh, it's going to go to 1 million. And they're like, oh, okay. Like when I would say gold's going to go to 2,000 or 5,000, oh, that's crazy talk. It's like they never say that about Bitcoin. Because why? Because these Bitcoin guys are buying all these advertisements on their networks. Oh, they're not going to say anything negative. They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them, right? All these companies now. And where do you think all these crypto companies are getting all this money to pay for all these ads? It's because they're the ones selling crypto. They're not dumb. They're not hodling it. They don't have diamond hands. That's just what they tell all the sheeple so that they don't sell. Right, because they have to make sure that the little guys keep buying so they can get out, right? And they got to keep. That's why Michael Saylor every day puts out all this promotion about Bitcoin is God. Bitcoin, that documentary that they just had, God bless Bitcoin, trying to get people to think that it's spiritual to own Bitcoin. God wants you to buy it. I mean, they're getting desperate to try to find new suckers to come into this scam.
Peter, how would you compare crypto to like rare trading cards or like Pokemon cards? Like in your mind, what's the difference between the two?
Well, now you're getting closer to what Bitcoin is, but
well, that's why I asked.
At least, look, I mean, at least Pokemon cards, kids play with them, they trade them. My young son's got a bunch of Pokemon cards, and his friends have Pokemon cards.
I mean, let's go beyond Pokemon. Let's do think like expensive baseball cards. Like how is Bitcoin compared to something like that?
Like a buddy of mine in Puerto Rico, set the record for buying a Mickey Mantle rookie card, and I remember when he told me he just bought it and he paid like $4 or $5 million for it, something like that. But then he turned around and sold it for $10 million. Right now, the thing is, there was only 3 or 4 of these cards in existence in the quality that this card was. There are people that really like baseball cards. They really like the sport. Maybe they played the game. They derive a certain amount of pleasure to be able to say, hey, I've got one of 4 Mickey Mantle rookie cards. I mean, now he's investing in jerseys. He's been buying a lot of these jerseys. But, I mean, there are things that people can prize, rare art, things that you have a physical thing that you can, you can feel pride and ownership, and you can feel special, and you can still leave it to your kids. So there's some value there in something that's really scarce and rare.
So would you put Bitcoin below that because it's not really rare? Because like anybody can get if I bought a Bitcoin, you bought a Bitcoin, we have the same Bitcoin, right? Like I don't have like it's like I'm buying I can buy Peter Schiff's Bitcoin and it sells for 10% more because you have it.
Look, there are 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis. There is enough for every man, woman, and child on the planet to have a few 100,000 Satoshis, and they're all exactly the same. And you can't you're not going to impress your friends by showing them your Satoshis, right? I mean, it's like, there's nothing there. I don't think you derive. So
is it kind of more like the
satisfaction?
What were those things called? The pictures that people bought that they thought were really cool, the Bored Apes?
Those were the NFTs,
right? So those went boom bust.
Look, here's the thing,
like that for you?
So I created my own NFT, right? So you can buy. So I did this ordinal, right? Because then they started doing NFTs inscribed on Bitcoin. So I came up with an ordinal, and I sold 100 of them. But every ordinal came originally with a signed original print
right, of a picture of an arm holding a bar of gold up in the air, and it's called Gold Triumphs, and there's one original oil painting that was made that still hasn't sold, so nobody bought that one. So I still have the original painting, but we sold all 100 of the prints, and with the prints, we included a ordinal which said each ordinal went to each print, which was some type of proof of ownership that, hey, I got the number one ordinal and I own this print number one. But it was an actual print that you could put in a frame and you can hang it up. But it was kind of like a joke because it was like showing that gold is triumphant. It was triumphant over Bitcoin. But I did these ordinals and they sold, and then some of them resold. I mean, I think they've sold for the high price, maybe $3,000. I forget what we got for them originally when people bought them. But you go to Magic Eden, you can see, I forget, last I looked, there was maybe 4 or 5 of them up for sale out of the ones that originally sold. But I went and did that. But at least I sold a real print. So if you go and you buy the ordinal, you should ask the guy who's selling it, can I get the print? Mail it to me. But I think, some people want to keep the print and just sell the ordinal because I signed it. It's an original signed print. There's only 100 of them. But at least that's more rare than Bitcoin. There's only 100 of these gold triumphant ordinals. Yes, each one is, inscribed on a Satoshi. So, but they're there. So I did it. I did it kind of like it was humorous, and a lot, when I did it too, a lot of people didn't seem to get the joke because they thought, oh, look, I'm adopting Bitcoin. Why do they think I made a gold bar? Why do they? I mean, I put a gold bar up in the air. But I always thought that if anything is going to have value, it would be this ordinal. I only made 100 of them, and I thought, you know what? What if I'm wrong? What if Bitcoin actually becomes a huge success, and I was the biggest critic? Well, maybe these Peter Schiff ordinals will have a lot of value.
Well, I think
in that universe.
You're describing what we would use to trade value, which is something that's rare, unique, or of value. And Peter, I wanted to ask you
But the thing is, anybody can take a picture. If you own the NFT of my print, anybody can, you can show if somebody can take a picture of it and have the same thing as you, right? It's like, it's not official, it could look just like it.
Peter, my favorite thing I ever heard about NFTs was that an original artist could create a piece of art, which is rare, unique, valuable. And then when the NFT trades, they would get 10% of what it was traded for, which to me, that's like perfect use of blockchain technology. And
well, except, and see, here's the thing though, the art, the NFT art, anybody can have a identical duplicate of it, just by copying it.
Well,
right?
but what I heard was that like an artist could make a painting, right, and sell an NFT of it, and then every time that painting traded, they would get a certain percentage of what it traded for, which I like because I was like, that goes back to the
if it was married to the NFT. Now, I didn't do that. When I did mine, I didn't want to, so mine can trade, and I don't get any money. Like, they're gone. So, if people buy them and sell them I don't make any money off of it, right? So whatever they do. But yeah, I mean, that was the way that you can get paid on multiple transactions. But unless you have something real, I just never thought that a digital image that can easily be replicated identically would have the same value as like an original oil painting. That yes, you can try to make a print, but if you're talking about the actual original that was painted by hand by the particular artist, having a print of that, having a copy of that is not the same as having the original. But I think having a copy of a digital image is pretty much the same as having the original digital image.
Of course, and I agree 100%. And I do think that's where there's a world for blockchain NFTs is like expensive things. Like let's say you go buy a Rolex. Right? Shouldn't the serial number be on a blockchain where if I go to sell it, then I still own title via the blockchain? Like that's where I see value. I don't really see value in the coin, so I agree with you there. But I wanted to ask you a follow-up because I thought I asked you, hey, if there's 3 things you could change to kind of transform the U.S. economy.
Dude, now silver's down 31 cents, so the metals are starting to sell off now. Now the Dow is down new lows, so the Dow is down 440, and we're down 5% on the Nasdaq.
Peter, just to finish my
not the Nasdaq, the Nasdaq 100. That is so now we're starting to build up into a crash type situation, and Bitcoin looks like it's about to roll over. We'll see. We're right at 53,000, but it could already be a lot lower. It's not.
Peter, can you hear me? I just wanted to finish my question.
Somebody just texted me.
You don't mind.
I've been going for 5 hours. I started this thing at 9 o'clock. It's 10 minutes to 2 o'clock, so I gotta get off so I can go to sleep.
Me too. If I could finish with the last question, that would finish on a positive note, if you don't mind.
I've got a hand up. You didn't have a hand up, and I've been waiting to just punch in, but go right ahead.
Peter, I just wanted to.
I still have over 2,000 people in the queue. So there's a lot of people that are staying up late, unless we got people on the West Coast, and maybe there's some people that are.
You actually have 4,300 people in here.
Those are just comments. If I could just ask my last question to follow up on the things I asked before, if hey, you could change 3 things. I guess what I'm wondering, Peter, is from your perspective, are you at all bullish on the future of the U.S. if you were to take like a 10 to 20 year horizon, knowing that I think more and more young people are kind of falling into that libertarian space where, and granted, there's a lot of people who are like way left or way right, but I think generally people are more socially liberal and fiscally conservative. There's 3 things that you mentioned, which would be probably the 3 core things we would need to move on to get to a place where the U.S. could be sustainable. Are you bullish or are you bearish on that happening? And this is less of a economic question, more of a cultural question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. I mean, I'm always optimistic on humanity. I mean, for all the mistakes that we make, particularly with government, we're smart, we're creative, there's people around the world that are improving on the advancements that have been made in the past. So I think it's clear that living standards will go up, that science and ingenuity and invention. Now, the progress would have been a lot greater had we maintained a smaller level of government, had we not allowed these huge governments to grow around the world and impede progress to the degree that they have. But, we have a lot of people that used to be completely enslaved. I mean, look at all the Chinese that were in a communist system that are now a lot freer than they used to be. So Americans are less free than we used to be, but the Chinese are more free. And so we can benefit from what they create. But, hopefully, when we have this massive crash and dollar collapse and this whole house of cards comes collapsing down, hopefully we can, get a fresh start and learn from those mistakes, and then with the added benefits of AI and different technologies that we didn't have in the past that we can utilize to help rebuild. So I like to be optimistic about the future.
All right, Peter, quick question.
But I just noticed, too, it's interesting. Yes, so I picked up about 8,000 followers on Twitter. So this is... I don't even know where these people are coming from.
Definitely start hosting
I apologize to Elon. I wish he would follow me. He follows a few people, but...
are you very active on it?
I mean, the only time he really noticed me was when he called me a dick and put a picture of an eggplant on one of my. Although he did acknowledge one other tweet after that eggplant tweet. I think so. He gave me like I forget what he put on it.
Well, Peter, I think Joe Rogan's curse called you to this space because I remember that podcast you did where you couldn't hear a word and the timing was all off. But appreciate you answering my questions and appreciate you answering the last one and thanks for everything you do, man. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so we'll take like one or two more questions. We got like 6 minutes till 2 a.m. Then I'll sign off.
Right on. Let's go to Lindsay and then Adam and then Penny, and then that'll be it.
You went to Lindsay last before me. I've had my hand up before. I'm gonna cry.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
All right, now so now we just went to down. We're now down 500 points on the Dow. The Nasdaq 100 is now down 6%. The crash here is gaining momentum, and of course increasing the likelihood that the Federal Reserve cavalry comes running to the rescue with a rate cut. And maybe even a double barrel worth of quantitative easing to go with it.
Abolish the Fed. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Okay, so here's just a fun question. Now, don't say gold. Your answer can't be gold. Okay, so if Trump gets in, what should we invest in or speculate will happen? If Kamala gets in, what should we invest in or speculate will happen? Go.
Well, unfortunately, the same thing is going to happen regardless of who gets in. Right? Remember, when Donald Trump was president the first time, deficit spending increased. And not only did the budget deficits increase, the trade deficits increased. Trump's policies didn't help reinvigorate American manufacturing. Trump lied about that just like Obama lied about it. Manufacturing has been in a recession for the entire Obama presidency, and it was in a recession under Trump. Manufacturing continued to shrink. Our trade deficits continued to grow. The trade deficits hit all-time record highs under Trump. Remember, he ran against those trade deficits. He talked about how bad they were, and under his presidency, they got worse. And under Obama's presidency. So what is going to happen is, the inflation that we're having now, we would be having it even if Trump won a second term. Right, because they're all doing the same thing. Obama did the same thing. Bush, George W. Bush, they've all been doing it. The difference is Harris will do more of it faster, right? So government spending will increase more under Harris, especially if the Democrats take back the House. So if we have Democrats controlling the House and the Senate and the White House, government will spend even more. There'll be even more regulation, and so it'll be even worse. So if Trump wins, although ironically, if Trump wins and the Republicans take back the Senate, they're not going to cut spending. They're going to increase spending, right? They're not going to cut anything. But there will be some less regulation, which will be helpful. But the inflation is going to continue. So it's going to be the same portfolio. It may work better, right? Kind of ironically, Harris winning is better for my investment strategy than Trump winning. I'll probably sell a lot more gold if Harris wins because more people, most of the buyers of gold tend to be Republican, and they buy gold when they're worried. And so if Harris wins, they're going to be a lot more worried than if Trump wins. So personally, for my business, right, Harris would be better for me. And since I live in Puerto Rico, even if Harris raised taxes on the rich, she's not raising my taxes. My taxes are going to stay at 4%, and my capital gains rate is going to stay at 0 no matter what she does. So if I were just thinking, who is going to help me make the most amount of money, it would be a clean sweep by the Democrats because they'll screw things up even more, and I'll make even more money. But I don't want that. Right? I have enough money. So I want Trump to win because he's less bad. But ideally, right? Neither of these candidates are going to do the right thing. So the portfolio is going to be the same. I think I'll make more under Harris, but I think I'm going to do really well under Trump. But as an American citizen, as a father,
I would much rather have Trump, especially when you look at how bad the Democrats have got. I mean, it's not just about the economics. I mean, it's about the lies and the fraud and the stuff that they're doing and the attacks on individual liberties. At least the Democrats at one time, at least they were for free speech, and freedom of expression and like keep the government out of the bedroom. But now, I mean, what's happened to that party, right? I mean, that's why guys like Elon Musk, who had been voting Democratic, can't support them anymore. I mean, what they're trying to do is horrible. So from that point of view, right, to break up that system, and that's one of the things I like, at least about Trump, is he's outside of that system. I mean, he's a thorn in the side. He's not part of that establishment. And I hope that if he does win, and stuff happens the way I think, that maybe I get his attention at some point, and maybe I can have an impact there. Maybe I could help them do the right thing.
If there's people on X who could probably help arrange something like that. Go ahead.
I mean, I know. I mean, he's friendly with guys. Look, I used to be very good friends with Larry Kudlow, and I know he's in there. And ironically, he's one of his good buddies is Art Laffer. Again, like Art Laffer is the guy that lost the bet with me for a penny, because when I was on CNBC with him, and I was predicting the collapse of the housing market and this great recession, he said, "You're crazy. Everything is fine. Nothing to worry about. I'll bet you a penny. I'll bet you a note and a penny." And of course, never got the note, never got my penny. But I mean, I know a lot of the people that he knows and that is in his circle. But I think if I'm right about what's going to happen in gold and gold stocks, and my net worth goes up by a few billion, and now maybe they'll listen to me.
Peter, hold on, Peter. But there's something you said about Trump's tenure, which I think that it needs a little bit more context, which is COVID rolled out during Trump's term, which is where he did most of the spending.
But the point was the deficits were going up before COVID, right? The trade deficits and the budget deficits were going up. And what Trump did under COVID was wrong. What we needed was government to cut spending during COVID, not increase spending. We needed money supply to go down because people stopped working. They needed to stop consuming. It was the most asinine combination of monetary and fiscal policy ever. And I criticized it in real time. And the reason the public was willing to accept these ridiculous lockdowns was because we paid them. We told people, don't worry about your rent and your mortgage and all that, because you don't have to pay. You can stop paying this, you can stop paying that. We're going to send you money. If the government didn't do that, the people wouldn't have accepted it. Everybody would have gone to work. And that would have been fine, because the whole thing was a hoax. The country that got it right was like Sweden, which basically did nothing, and they were fine. But the reason that Americans accepted this, because the government financed it, and because the Federal Reserve, that idiot Jerome Powell, told Congress, run up the deficits, spend a bunch of money, I'll print it. Don't worry about it. I got your back. Right? He likes to say, he's apolitical, but during COVID, he told the government to run up the deficits, that he would print the money. And that was an asinine policy. Trump signed on to it. He signed on to the PPP, right? The Paycheck Protection. What a terrible piece of legislation that was. Awful. He should have vetoed it, right? All that COVID stimulus stuff should have been vetoed. I would have vetoed it if I was president. I would have signed my name. And all the budgets that he signed before COVID, I would have vetoed every one of them. I would have said, you send me a balanced budget, I'm not going to sign it. If you're going to pass a non-balanced budget, then you're going to have to override my veto. I am not going to sign on to this nonsense. You go back and you cut spending. But he didn't do any of that. He signed all that bullshit. But again, had we elected Hillary Clinton instead of Trump, she would have been even worse, right? So not that I'm saying that,
we shouldn't have elected Trump, but he didn't do what needed to be done. He didn't make America great again. He might pretend that he made America great again, but it got worse, not better. We didn't have the greatest economy in the history of the world like he claims. We just had a bubble. And, and it's continued under Biden.
It's gotten much worse under Biden. Penny, go ahead. I don't know how much time Peter's got left, but go ahead and get in here.
Look, I agree. Biden's a disaster. I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah, if you got to give economic advice to Harris or Trump.
Anyway, I think it's already after 2 o'clock, so I got to go to bed because
I host these spaces all the time. If you ever need a space host or if you need some pointers on how to get set up to hosting these more often on your own, shoot me a DM. I'm your co-host. I'd be more than happy to help you get started if you want to do these more often.
All right, well, who is it?
Diligent Denizen, I'm your co-host.
Yeah, I probably forget though by the time I wake up.
Well, yeah. I mean, just click on it now.
I'll write it down. Hold on. What is it? Who is it?
Diligent Denizen.
Diligent Denizen.
I'm your co-host. I have the 2 D's if you look on your screen.
Diligent Denizen.
Yep.
How do you spell it?
It's DILIGENT. Denizen. DENIZEN.
All right, Diligent Denizen. All right. Well, thanks for your help, guys. Thanks for everybody who's participated in this thing. Thanks to, I got these new ex-followers. So, yeah, tell your buddies. See if we can get more followers out of this. And
you do spaces more often, Peter, and you'll get more. It's diligent Denizen.
Yeah, isn't that it's all right? But yeah, and it looks like we're that the euro has backed off a bit, but the and now we're down like 600 on the Dow. Is that where we were? We're still down about 6%, but the Nasdaq 100 is down. The future is down over 1,000 points. I mean 6%. But now it's pulled gold back down. So I didn't, gold's back down $13. So it's having a hard time. People are just not getting this.
One last question for you here. Milton Friedman is a hero of mine, and if there's somebody that I could bring back from the dead, that would definitely be somebody that we need in this time to help us work through this.
By the way, Bitcoin hit a new low. Bitcoin just broke 52,000, so it's at a new low. Go ahead.
Would you be willing to take the mantle of Milton Friedman as far as what he has done in educating people on free markets and sound money and the difference between currency and money? Maybe get into the Trump appointed position. Reach out to do that, because I'd love to see you in a position like that personally.
Yeah, Milton Friedman was a great economist. I mean, I have the only little difference I have with him is on money. I mean, he was his monetarist viewpoint is a bit different than the Austrian. So but on so many other issues, he was just such a phenomenal teacher. And he was great at explaining things, and of course I'm a lot closer to a monetarist than I was to a Keynesianist, But he wasn't really a pure Austrian when it came to money. So more of a Hayek, Mises, but he was great. I mean, in my lifetime, really, he was probably one of the best economists that was out there. And at least he got the Nobel Prize, because they normally give those things out to fools like Paul Krugman. So at least you got a decent economist. Anyway, Bitcoin is really starting to crash here. So we'll see if it's a 51.7 or so, but starting to it just really is starting to break down. But yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of stuff on the internet, old things that Friedman said. You can find them. I think I've already done a lot in terms of helping to educate people about free market. I mean, a lot of people. I mean, one of the things I did that really helped was the Occupy Wall Street thing, and tens
But
of
Peter,
millions of
I
people.
think
have seen.
people love being able to interact with you. Diligent. Could he replace Shift Radio with this, where it's like he can interact? Like this is recorded, right? So like, can Peter repost this? Is that possible?
I wouldn't even know how. I mean, doesn't it die after
I'm
we're
asking
finished?
Diligent because he's our tech guy now. He's our VA guy. Like,
what was the question?
Is Peter able to like repost this? Can he replace Shift Radio with just doing spaces then repost it?
He could.
Remember, I'm getting a quarter. I get like a $250,000 listeners to podcast. So I'm not.
What he can do is simulcast from his podcast and on Spaces at the same time. So he wouldn't have to actually change anything. He would just be streaming onto Spaces as he's doing his podcast like he would normally. Spaces would just be another platform in which
I feel like that's Peter's avenue to grow this. That's awesome. You guys got to connect to figure that out.
I tagged you in a reply, Peter. You put my ad in there. You can find me later, and I can help you set something up.
All right. Yeah, the best guy too. If you want to talk about some ideas, send an email to paul@shiftradio.com.
paul@shiftradio.com.
Yeah.
Peter, this was awesome.
Great. He works on my podcast with me. All right, so it's 2:10 a.m. Yeah, I got to go to sleep because it's a Monday morning. Well, I'm technically on vacation for another week, and then I go back to Puerto Rico. But I know there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in the market. Shit! I have a dentist appointment. I have an eye doctor appointment at 9:45. Shit! I really got to go to sleep. People noticed that on my last podcast. I was having problems with my eye, so I got a doctor's appointment in the morning.
I'll dial it in.
Take care of yourself, Peter.
All right. So, how do I end this thing? What do I put
the
on
top
here?
right corner, just hit the end space button. Make sure you guys are all following Peter.
I don't see anything. There's just
top right corner of the phone. Are you on your phone?
Yeah. You have to be on your phone or it doesn't work.
So there's a red button in the top right corner, or you can minimize the space and hit the X. Either or.
Oh, here's an X on the top. Hey, hello? No, that's just a bit. Nothing happened.